Hello, and welcome to the Eyes of Life show. I am your host, Yolo Schubert, and it's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I'm sorry we're starting about an hour and a half late, but today has been a long day. So, we're going to talk about today Mexicans. There's so much about the United States and Mexico and building a wall. And should they be allowed to enter into the United States? So I would like to talk a little bit about the Mexicans and should they be able to be considered part American? And this is the heading because of the things that have come about within that country and the heritage of Mexican roots. So I must say, I am very intrigued about the information that I have found pertaining to Mexican um, history. So I'm going to give a minute, see how many, people are going to jump on because we are running a tad bit late. So we're going to, and I did have my assistant put a note out to let everybody know that this show was going to be starting at 7:30. So give me a minute and we are going to get started here. As while we get these notes, let me get my notes. So now that we have the notes and everything is up and ready to go, I want to bring to your attention how long has the Mexican race existed? I was shocked when I found out that they first populated more than 13,000 years ago in central and southern Mexico, where was where the term was Mesoamerican or Mesoamerica, saw the rise and fall of complex indigenous civilizations. Mesoamerican civilizations developed uh, glyphics, glyphic writing systems, recording the political history of conquest and rulers. So they were around for a pretty long time. And believe it or not, it was longer than I actually thought they were actually around. So, um, with that said, I think we're going to move forward. So, pardon me. So, who was the first Mexican civilization? So, the first Mexican civilizations were the Almac people. Who were the Almac? The Almacs were the first major civilization in Mexico. They lived in the tropical lowlands on the Gulf of Mexico in the present day Mexican state of Veracruz and Tabasco. So these people did not just pop up here. They were not just, oh, I'm going to now cross over into the United States. Okay. So that's one thing I want to get, clear with the Mexicans. Okay. So was Mexico a country? Was Mexico a country before the United States? Mexico is named for the Mexica tribe whose final locations were where they were built and where they built their civilization until the Aztecs invaded their valley of Mexico. So Mexico predated the US by more than 800 years. So let me just, um, go back to that. Was Mexico a country before the United States? Let's say that. Mexico is named for the Mexico tribe whose final location where they built their civilization until the Aztecs invaded their valley of Mexico. So Mexico predated the US by more than 800 years. So there you go. So Mexico was here before, you know, the United States, the land that we call United States is considered the United States. So Mexico existed long before that. So, pardon me, I'm sorry. So, what do you think so far? Should they, with knowing the information that they were here, that they existed, the state, the country, the land predated US. So we're going to find out how it predated US. What is the Mexican race ethnicity? This is a good one. What is their ethnicity? The culture diffusion and intermixing amongst the Amerindians populated with African and the Europeans created the modern Mexican identity, which is a mixture of regions, indigenous European and African culture that evolved into a national culture during the Spanish period. Hmm. So, once again, the Spanish period. The first Mexican War was 1846, April 25th, 1846. What started the Mexican War? The cause of the Mexican American War was to dispute over boundaries between the United States and Texas on the Necessis Strip. Mexico did not recognize Texas as a legitimate state. So let's let's back that up again. The cause of the Mexican American War was a dispute over boundaries between the United States and Texas. Okay, Mexico did not recognize Texas as a legitimate American territory. So they didn't recognize that Texas was an American territory. And Texas' admission to the United States and antagonized Mexicans officials and citizens of Mexico. So this is another reason why I say, they're talking about Mexico like it wasn't always here. Okay. And that they weren't already here long before a war. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this here. We're going to talk about the treaty. Okay. So we know that the war started April 25th of 1846. Okay. Now the thing is, they up there in Congress and up there on the Senate floor, everybody's acting like, oh, Mexico is such a problem. Mexican people are such a headache. They're coming over here like they wasn't already coming over here, like they wasn't already here. Okay. So, pardon me. Guadalupe had the Hidalgo in 1848. This treaty, signed on February the 2nd, 1848, ended the war between the United States and Mexico. By its terms, Mexico ceded 55% of its territory. Now, y'all, I want to tell y'all these territories. And when I say I want to tell y'all about these territories, and the reason why I want to tell y'all about these territories is because there wasn't just one state that was part of the Mexican territories that they ceded. It wasn't two. It wasn't three. I was shocked. About 10 of them. So let's check out these states that preceded the Mexican War. Okay? Because I feel like if they preceded the Mexican War, after it was done, the treaty was signed, and they ceded these 55% of its territory. So let's check it out. And I want you to know the states that preceded the territory. So the states were, in present day, California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, most of Arizona, Colorado, and parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Wyoming. Mexico also relinquished all claims to Texas and recognized the Rio Grande as the southern boundary with the United States. So I once again, I tell y'all, think about what they're saying about Mexico. Hi, cousin Ella, how are you? Think we're talking about Mexico and Mexicans. Okay. So basically, I just spoke about the treaty that was signed. I was shocked to find out that there were 10 states that 55% had something to do with Mexicans, Mexico itself. Okay. And they ceded that in 1848 to the United States. So, in case you didn't get that, cousin Ella, Mexico ceded 55% of its territory, including the present day states, okay? California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, most of Arizona, Colorado, and parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Wyoming. Mexico also relinquished all claims to Texas. But y'all, still, Texas is the one is complaining. Texas and California, they doing the biggest and the most complaining about these Mexicans coming over here across the border. But these are areas that was once Mexico's territory. And this treaty is cited. Okay? This is cited in our government's National Archive building in Washington, D.C. So people up there in Washington acting like they didn't know Mexico was part of this country long before this country gained its independence. I'm doing well, cousin Ella. I'm doing well. So, what are some of the questions that people asked? Okay. Did Mexicans originate from Spain? So, we have to keep in mind that Spain was importing slaves long before the Europeans. Okay. So, demographics, Spanish descendants make up a large group of Europeans in Mexico. And most Mexicans have some degree of Spanish descent. Most of their ancestors arrived during the colonial period, but hundreds of thousands have since then immigrated, especially during the Spanish and the Civil War. And they especially immigrated during the 1930s. And they started immigrating prior to that. They were immigrating. Okay. So another one was about the Almacs. So it's a big fight about is the Almacs really have any African descent, or they don't have African descent. So as I was looking up the research on did Almecs have any African descent? Okay. Well, there was a theory that no, a DNA test was done. So it was this book that was done, and it talked about Mexicans having some African DNA. Okay. Well, I want to see if they did, if they didn't. So this was one of the things that I found about the Almecs, because the Almecs is the oldest people of Mexico. These are the oldest natives of Mexico. These were one of the first people to come to Mexico to create Mexico. So, based on the comparison, some writers have said that the Olmecs were Africans who had immigrated to the New World. But the vast majority of archaeologists and other Mesoamerican scholars reject that claim of pre Columbian contacts with Africans. While historians have speculated that the facial features of some monumental carved heads indicate an African origins of these people, most scholars believe that the Almec like other Native Americans, descend from Asian ancestors who entered North American during the Great Ice Age. So let's talk about Asians. Were they here in the United States before the Europeans? For those that don't know, yes, they were. And for those that don't know, if you ever take a DNA test, it's a possibility that you may pull Asian roots. It's a possibility that you may pull that Asian root. And if you do pull that Asian root, it's also another possibility that you're going to pull indigenous Native American Mexico. So what that's the food for thought right there. That is definitely a food for thought. So let's take a look at what is the Almex DNA. Okay, so the Almex share genetic marker with the indigenous population of Mexico and Central America. Okay, so Van Sertima originally claimed that Mexicans descend from Africans. Okay, but if you recall a previous show of mine, I showed how all race come from the African race. I showed how all races come from Africa. That's where it began. That's where man began. Man began in Africa. So for them to say that they had no Africans DNA, hmm, that's a moment. Also, it gives you food for thought and make you think. Okay, so during this, it was a professor website, okay, that they claim that have taken DNA, and that the DNA showed that there were no African roots from the Almec people. So I reached out to the college where they supposed to have did the DNA, and I asked them, how did you come up with your findings in saying that the Almec people were not or did not have any African DNA? When I questioned them about it and asked how they got it, well, no one could actually give me a definitive answer. So I said, how could you sit there and say that they didn't have any African DNA? I mean, if they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. That's fine, well and good. But show me the stats. Show me the facts. Just don't put it out there for us to research and people Googling, and it says, oh, it shows as of April 25th, 2023, the hypotheses show that there were no African DNA trace in the Almec people. Because I want to see that DNA being done. I want to see how you guys came up with this theory. And they could not give that to me. And mind you, they wanted me to pay for this information. So they said, okay, it's a $5 session, okay, for a few minutes. Okay, but I went straight to the question. I went straight to the source because I wanted to know, how did you come up with that? And once again, I really did not get a definitive answer. So if you ever look at all the Olmecs around the world, a lot of them have the nose cut off. Okay, and there was always a saying that if there's a statue that has a broad nose because Africans and people of African descent are all known for having a broad nose. So we're known for that. So if that wasn't true, then why did you cut off some of the noses of the Almec people? Now, the Almec people, yes, I'm quite sure they went into other places just like some Africans did, just like some Europeans did. They didn't just sit still in one spot, you know, they didn't. So the Almec share genetic markers with the indigenous population of Mexico and Central America. This disproved Van Sertima's controversy hypothesis once and for all on April 25th, 2023. The Olmecs were Native Amerindians, same as everyone else in America before the arrivals of the Europeans. So, once again, if the Olmec people were Native Amerindians, explain to me why there's so much controversy on them coming over here. I don't get it. Their DNA is more closely related to East Asian than Europeans. So remember, I said that Asians were here long before the Europeans were here. So once again, why are you trying to stop these people from coming over here? I understand people say, "Oh, well, they're coming over here. They're stealing our jobs." Well, did you think about that in 1980 when they were allowing Asians and the Chinese people and the Japanese people to come over here? And when they came over, they gave them a care package. They got a care package. They got food stamps. They got free housing, free taxes for a year. They didn't have to pay no taxes. They got free money. Here, we can't even get our money that they owe our ancestors that they were promised, but they get free money. Nobody's talking about what they did back in 1980 and during the 80s when they were allowing thousands and thousands and thousands of Asians, Chinese, Japanese, when they were allowing them to come over here. And I remember all too well because the Italian stores, they were buying them up in my neighborhood. These were stores that were shoe stores. They were Italian shoe stores where your parents can go buy you leather Italian shoes, clothing stores, fruit stores, the neighborhood little grocery store where you can run and get your, something that you forgot to get at the big supermarket. This is when they started actually coming over, the end of the 70s, going into the 80s. They were coming over here like flies flying around. But yet you find it such a problem with the Mexicans coming over. Here it tells you they were East Asian more than they were Europeans. And they were also here just all the other indigenous Native American people long before the Europeans came. So with this food for thought, do you think we should be giving them a hard time? Should we be building this wall? These people are coming over here trying to work, and they're coming over here trying to do jobs that we feel as though we're too proud to do. They're the ones out there in the fields, and they're picking up the fruit, and they're picking up the berries, and out there picking vegetables out the fields. I know I see a lot of them out here in Delaware. They out there in the fields, working. The difference between them and our ancestors is they're Mexican and our ancestors were African. So once again, this is a food for thought show. Why are we giving them such a hard time? Allow them to come over here and get a green card, because Lord knows you allowed um, everybody else to. The Middle East come over here and get a green card in a minute and say they going to school. So they're going to school. Mexicans can't go to school. Asians, Chinese, Japanese, all of them can come over here and get a green card. And this is the kicker. They come over here and they get their little financial package and they save up. And this is what you don't understand about what they do. What they do is they will build up their money and they'll save up enough to bring that next family over. And then they leave and go back over to their country before they have to pay taxes. And then the next family come over and now they're going to get this free money. They're going to get that with like care package. Where's our care package? And then when they get their care package, they're going to do the same. And it's a repeated cycle that they do. So when they do that cycle of, okay, well, for instance, all right, well, me and my family came here first. So once I send back enough money back home to start building upon, then right before they have let me know that I am now going to have to pay taxes, I'm going to go back to my country. But before I go, I'm going to bring one of my siblings and their family over here. And they're going to come over and they're going to work the business that we have opened. And they're going to build their money until they reach that time frame when they have to pay taxes. And it's a continuous cycle. Now, once you went all through your siblings, now here go your cousins. So they're constantly building their wealth and off of Americans and taking it back to their country. The same goes for the doctors that are coming over here from the Middle East. They're working in our hospitals and they're taking their money and they're sending it back to their land. And then when they're ready to go back home, then they have enough money to go back home. And now they're going to be a doctor in that land. But they done built off so much wealth from the United States from being here. So you ask yourself, with this information, should Mexicans be treated no different than we would have treated indigenous natives that we know the Europeans stole their land? Should we treat them the same? I think we should. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. I'm one of those few people that can actually sit here and say, I have indigenous Native American DNA. I have 1.8%. And I have 2.3% Asian. So I'm one of those few people that can literally say, hey, why are you treating them like this? We should be respect as we are treating the indigenous Native American people and their descendants, because that's who these people are. Some of these Mexicans are of African descent that left the United States, that were half indigenous Native American people and black, and some of them was half indigenous Native American people and white, and they went over into Mexico. Just look it up. Mexico has a town called Nigroa. This town, Negro, is for a lot of the descendants of people who actually were once enslaved in the United States. And when they got their freedom, they left and they went to Mexico. And some of them ran, they escaped slavery and ran to Mexico. So Mexico is filled with a lot of the United States people, as well as a lot of indigenous descendants are there. So I say we stop treating them like they shouldn't be here, like they're not part of that indigenous Native American roots, because they are. Tell me what you think. Leave a message, make a comment. Should they, come over here, be allowed to come over here, obtain a green card, work towards their citizenship now, which, because they done been over Mexico for a period of time. And unless they can prove, I feel like this, unless they can prove that they are indigenous native people from the United States, if they have that proof, then I don't feel as though they should have to get a green card. Because why? They were here before you were. Where's your green card? How about that? Where's yours? I don't ever recall y'all actually even getting a green card. Not natives of this land. Y'all came to this land. The only people that rightfully belong in this land are indigenous Native American people. And based on research, that is Mexican people. They are part of that. So the next time one of your family members decide to come over here from Europe, Spain, Portugal, um, Britain, make sure you tell them to obtain a green card. Make sure you tell them to obtain that green card. Well, I want to thank you for watching the Eyes of Life show. We're coming down to the wire, to the last minute of the show. So I would like to thank you for watching. And I hope you do get something out of it. I hope educational tool for you, and that we go out and we educate children so they're not being ignorant to what they're seeing on these televisions, what they're seeing people out there doing. Education is key. They're not going to teach this to our children in school today. They didn't teach it to me when I was in school. So it is up to us to educate our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren. Please educate them, show them. YouTube has a have a lot of stuff on TV that people have went to these different countries. People have went to these different countries and they're actually showing you, giving you factual information. So please let your child sit there. And some of it is in cartoon. Some of it is in cartoon. So they're making it children friendly as well as adult friendly. So please educate our children, educate our youth so they can grow up and educate their children and educate other youth. So I want to thank you for watching the Eyes of Life show. I thank you for joining us today. And everybody have a blessed and prosperous night and enjoy the rest of your week and have a blessed weekend.